Hi everybody, welcome. Today I've got this Hatbox. I gave it a base coat of white paint and now I'm just applying a little bit of antique white. It's going to give it a nice soft mottled effect, and that's kind of what I'm going for with this piece. I don't really want a flat color. I want to have a little bit of variation for interest, and so I'm using my sponge just to lightly apply the white paint, and it's going to give us the coverage and the look that we are going for. I want to make sure this is really dry before we move on to the next step. I'm going to be using some stencils, and I don't want the paint, even if it's just tacky, I don't want it to stick to the stencils and pull away from the box at all. So I have this stencil of some foliage, and I picked this one in particular. It fits well on the side of this box, and I like the design. Now it's a little tricky because of the top like flower portion of this foliage. It's got a lot of little dots, and so I kind of really had to work that paint down into there without causing any bleeding, and so it ended up working out pretty well, but it was just a little bit tricky. And so here is the first one. Turned out great, and the little dots there, didn't have a problem with those. And so now I'm going to go along this entire edge with this design, but I want to make sure that I get that stencil nice and dry before I move on. Again, I don't want the stencil to stick to the paint or mess it up or anything like that. And so I'm just kind of connecting the two without overlapping. I want it to look like one design all the way around, but I don't want to overlap in any way. And so I get it as close as I can to the first design. Now this second one, I had it moved up to the side just a little bit, not a big deal. I'm just going to take a portion of that stencil, lay it down, and add that to it. And so that worked out. Now I am using the color Coffee Bean. It's my go-to paint for any kind of neutral tones or staining, and I thought it looked really well with the white and the antique white together. I do really like my neutrals. Now I have this stencil that I like it because it fills out the entire box. Of course, I do love the design as well. And so I start here, and the stencil starts kind of flopping around on me. So I do end up adding some of that painter's tape here in just a minute. So I really like how this turned out. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm really kind of taking a liking to stencils. They're fun and easy to use. And if you find designs that you really like, it just makes it that much better. So now I'm taking more of the coffee bean. I'm going around the edge. I like to kind of finish out my pieces with, either framing or some kind of shading. And so I'm just going to take my cosmetic sponge and continue around this edge. I am using that sponge parallel to the edge because when I use the shorter side, it seemed to lay the paint down in a way that I didn't want. I didn't want to bring it up too far into the original image. I just want a soft shading around the edge here. To finish off this piece, I want to cut a little bit of shredded paper for the center, and I've got my McCall's pattern paper. I like to scoop these up anytime I find these, usually at a thrift store or a yard sale. And I do like to pre-cut this stuff whenever I do craft shows or farmers markets. I use it for like filling for display baskets or wooden crates, and it's a cheap, easy, interesting way to fill up your containers. And so I just cut strips, and now I'm going to get those all separated. Now I do like to crumple everything up, and that just kind of molds everything, makes it, you know, kind of hold together, and it looks better in the container when it's crumpled like this. So I got a little extra piece there. This is actually kind of fun to do, and it's neat to have a bunch on hand for, you know, like for fall or Halloween. I like to take black tissue paper, cut those into strips, and use those in my display containers for shows. And so also for gifts, it's a really unique way to showcase your gifts. And so here is the finished project number 1. For project number 2, I'm taking some paper tissue. I got this at the Dollar Tree, very inexpensive. I'm going to use the white tissue for this project. I'm just going to pre-cut a square so it's easy to handle. And so I want to measure where it's going to fit inside of this box. And I don't have to get too fussy with this, just as long as there's a general, you know, fitting into the center of this. And so I just lay it down and crease the edges. And then what I'm going to do is take some water on a brush. That way I can tear the edges. This is a nice way to tear the edges. You can do it by hand, but it could get a little unpredictable, or you might risk tearing the actual paper. And this way I can guide the shape that I want, and it'll only tear up to that water line, which is really great. It gives it a really cool edge, like a scalloped frayed edge. I like that for these pieces. And so there's something about this too that's quite satisfying. I don't know what it is, using the water on the brush like that. It just tears so easy, and you just let the paper and the water do the work for you. However it turns out is the way that it is. And if you need to trim a little bit off, that's a very easy process. Just repeat with the water and continue to tear to the size that you're looking for. Now I do end up using a dryer for this. It actually dried very, very quickly. And so now I've got my stamp. It is 2 birds on a branch. I got this stamp on Amazon. Actually, it was under $5. I will put the link in the description. I've used this one before. It's a really great size for the price. And I'm using a waterproof black ink with this. And besides it being the black ink that I have, it actually is going to work for my next step in this. So what I'm doing is taking some coffee and water mixture. Because that ink is waterproof, I'm able to do this technique without causing any fraying or bleeding of that ink. It works out really, really well. So I just spritz that. I wanted something, just a little something. And now I'm just going to dry that really quick. I did decide to go around the edges with the coffee as well. And again, I like my borders, I like my frames. And so I'm just going to go around there and then dry that as well with my hairdryer. This box it's fine the way it is, but I wanted to kind of freshen it up. So I'm taking some watered down antiquing wax and going around the entire thing. I definitely felt like it needed just a little brightening of that wood for what we're going to be doing. And so I just go around the entire thing with one simple coat. I'm going to lay down this image with a little bit of clear sealer. You can use Mod Podge as well, just as long as you apply a thin coat. Now, there is another way you can do this. You can actually just do that water line around your image and place that in the center. I opted for one piece. I wanted to fill out the entire space with texture and just some neat variation, something that looks a little bit different. So I'm applying this very, very gently. I've seen crafters use like cellophane or some kind of plastic. I'm opting for just a cloth. What I'm doing here is I will take my hair dryer and dry it just to tacky, almost dry, and then I press everything down if there's any wrinkles or bubbles, and it ends up working really well. You can see here where I'm drying and pressing at the same time, and so I've had no issues doing it this way. I think the cellophane would work well as well. And so let's see. Okay, I'm using my palette knife again. I've got a water and acrylic paint wash that I'm doing. I didn't want to use a solid white. I had just decided to use this wash, and so I'm starting very lightly. I'm trying to decide how far I want to go with this. I do like this light application, but at the time I did decide to continue. And because it is a light wash, when it dries, it's just not so solid, you know, like a matte paint. And I really kind of like that because the inside of the box kind of looks like a wash as well. And so I'm just going to apply this. And again, I've been using this palette knife my last few projects. I absolutely love using palette knives. If I can do more projects, I will. And so it's just a lot of fun, and it creates a really neat look. It's kind of like a reverse distressing. So instead of adding your paint and then taking it away, you're just adding it to already look chipped. And so here is finished project number 2. For project number 3, I have a metal container and my transfers. These transfers, I've talked about them before. I got them on Amazon, and they are very tricky to work with. They are kind of like a PVC. I think they're designed for glass or ceramic, or some kind of like, you know, your insulated water bottles. They would work excellent for that. They're very, very durable, but not as easy to work with on craft projects. So that's why I'm laying this down first. I did a previous project where I painted the metal container. then laid down the transfers, and when I pulled the transfer up, it pulled up the paint. It was a very happy accident. I was very satisfied with the end result. But this time I want to try laying these down first and then painting over them. And so I do have kind of a neat little hack here that I've never used before. And so I'm excited to share that with you, and I'll be doing that here in just a little bit. But for now, I'm going to peel back the layers on this transfer. You know, I don't know if I'm going to be purchasing these transfers again. Like I said, I got them on Amazon, and they are by the company Flonz, I believe, Flonz, Flonz, and they have some neat products, but I'm just not sure how well they work with actual crafts and different types of fibers and stuff other than glass or ceramic. So, okay. So what I do here is I paint the entire thing in a gray. It's called Asphalt. It's a dark gray, almost a black. And so I decided I want to give this paint, or not paint, a tape thing a try here. I've seen other crafters do it, not quite like this on metal. And so for me, this is a new thing. I really like this a lot. I can't wait to try it again on other surfaces. And so instead of tearing the paint away like you would see on wood, it kind of created like a little bit of a speckling, I guess. And so I switch over here to a different tool just to get a broader coverage. And so it's really kind of neat. I'm liking it. Okay, so we're going to do the top here. And the top, you know, it was okay. I had to work with it quite a bit. The end result worked out okay. I would probably do it a little bit differently next time. But you can see here the texture that it created. I really like it. It gives it a nice antique look. So because these transfers are so durable, I am going to use a 100 grit sandpaper just to get that image to come back through. I knew it wasn't going to damage the transfer in any way, and so I'm just going to do that. Then I decided I wanted to get the image to come through a little bit more, so I take a little bit of water and my cloth and wipe away that paint. Even though the paint is dry, it comes up very easily, and so I can get those mushrooms to show through just a little bit. I did end up wiping away a little bit of paint there on the side, more than I wanted to, so I go back and add it back in, and then I'm just going to add a sealer for the top of this. So now I'm adding my clear coat sealer to my hot mess box. You know, sometimes it just doesn't always work out. That's fine. You know, this was kind of a test piece for me just to see what I can do with these transfers and paint on metal. Lesson learned. That's okay. I'm going to keep going with the clear coat. I'm going to use this for storing my molds for crafts, and so yeah, not that many people are going to see it except for everybody on the internet. So anyways, that's okay. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed these 3 projects. Let me know what you think about this hot mess I got going on here, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.